is tabletop time.
So let's talk about rule things then.
All right.
How about that?
Rule things.
Rule things,
Uh-oh.
you say. Where's that Tau Codex at?
Is there something that's bothering you about the Tau Codex?
Everything.
Okay, well, all right. Here's something to talk about. What do you think about people who make their own scenarios? Like, what are some ideas? Like, do you think scenarios you should only go off like the core rulebook and the like PDF releases and stuff that GW does as far as playable scenarios go, or do you think it's cool like if you go meet up with someone in the shop and they're like, oh well, I thought we would like play this like scenario that I made up, or you like cool, or you like well I'd rather only play something made by GW.
I'll tell you what, I've seen a number of different scenarios that aren't out of the GW stuff, that are just, basically house rules from various places that I've watched and that I've played. I don't mind as long as it's a good, solid, balanced rule set.
As long as it's fair, yeah.
As long as you've established before the battle starts what the rules are going to be, and the rules aren't
It's not
blatantly favoring one army over another.
It's not like in the middle of like, oh, by the way, and I get like extra victory points for standing on grass. And shit
If
like
that's the situation, then great. We had at the store that Mike had in Washington, we had a really interesting tournament where every battlefield had a portal that led to other battlefields in the tournament.
Oh,
so
cool.
once you managed to wipe your table, you could actually move your army onto a battle in progress somewhere else in the building.
Now let me ask you this. So say you're playing 1,000 points, each person on the table. You wipe out the other person's 1,000 points, but in the midst you are now down to 400 points. When you go through the portal, do you get to redeploy, or do you have 400 points?
You take what's left with the injuries that were on hand, you go through, and whatever they've got at that table over there, when you walk through, that's what you're up against.
Now, if the battle is in the middle, like you can come on a table where two people are still battling.
Yeah.
And say they're battling like over there, you come in up over here, and you just leave your models to watch until like the one guy wipes out all of that guy. And now he's down to like 10 models, and you take your 30 models, and then you wipe the rest of him out.
Well, during that tournament, what I had attempted to do was, after I cleared my battlefield, I knew that we were doing last man standing. So I basically just arrayed all of my stuff in front of my portal, waiting for whoever it was to come through the portal into my terrain, which turned out to be Mike. He brought through Necrons. And I dropped so much fire into that unit, it was disgusting. I must have put like 50 dice on that unit.
Oh, the old Immortals used to be really awesome.
I got it down to one guy left standing.
They all got
and they all got back up.
That's what I love about Necrons.
Yep, every single one of them. And then I proceeded to finish slaughtering him with those Immortals, because the rest of my army that had previously walked over a Chaos army had then been able to make it in through that portal as well. I also slaughtered an Eldar army in there somewhere. I think they were in the middle table.
Something got wiped.
So I walked through a Chaos army, finished up the remnants of a Eldar army, and then walked over to the final army, which had been his. He beat the crap out of a bunch of orcs.
Actually got some Imperials too, I think.
Which the setup was
yeah.
The setup for the table. I feel really bad for the orc player, not only because he wasn't the brightest person around, but also because he ended up playing orcs on an entirely water map that was entirely difficult terrain. So that worked out pretty well for him. Not so much.
It was a water map that had small islands, bridges all over.
Oh, you told me this. Yeah.
Of course, I'm running all skimmers. I don't care.
And jump infantry.
And it was a shooting gallery, and I
you like took out bridges and he couldn't go anywhere.
I actually ended up getting him stuck on the island with the portal, and I told him that if he went through the portal and wiped someone else out for me, I wouldn't wipe him from the board. So that's what he did, and I threw him into, and then I went through and I wiped the rest of the Imperials from the table. This is a pretty good example of an interesting scenario.
Yeah.
It really, that particular table kind of favored the Tau. It was kind of luck that I happened to draw it.
Well, until the Necrons got there.
But
we were actually having this conversation earlier about how elites are kind of pointless to bring now.
That's not true. They're not
pointless to bring, but it's like, okay.
Elites are elite. They're great for killing things, which is really what they're for. but they can't score on any special mission unless somebody creates one and says, hey, elites are scoring units.
Yes, and that's one I think should be created.
No, yeah, I've seen a lot of different scenarios that have been created by players or even house rules for stores and other places that I played, and a lot of them I find to be very interesting and different. I like playing them because you kind of get bored of the same scenarios over and over again.
It's very true.
And that does keep it interesting, but like I said, you have to have the rules very clearly established from the start, and they have to be, at the very least, not directly advantageous to one army or another.
See, now here's the funny thing, is, as I said, it's like, would you rather have someone make it, like you and your friends come up with their own scenario, and like you don't want to favor one versus the other, or do you guys like only play GW ones, right? The problem is, the one, like, GW has released the extra content stuff now, like PDF files that are expansions and supplements and things already. And one of the ones is Tyranid book that I think it's like extra fluff and extra rules for them. And it also has Tyranid specific scenarios. I've watched some people play these, and it's a common. It's when you watch these, it's like there's one of the scenarios totally favors the Tyranids, and anyone who's playing them, it's like, why even play this scenario? This is made for the Tyranids to win, and it's out of their book.
And then the challenge.
Well, okay, for the challenge, and then the other one though that you play, oddly enough, completely favors whoever the Tyranids are playing against.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like, okay, so I downloaded this, or I paid for this PDF extra supplement, whatever, from GW, and now when I play it, do I want my Tyranids to automatically win, or do I want my friend to automatically win?
Well, I don't look at it that way. It gives you options for different kinds of tactical scenarios to put yourself in. It's
certainly not an automatic win.
That's very true.
Maybe an uphill battle.
We were talking about this table earlier in the setup that we had, where we have one hill on the side, another hill here, and we were talking about how anybody who deployed on this table edge would have a very distinct strategic advantage over,
because they have the hill at the edge,
at the corner, and then the
this
hill
end
in the middle
is empty. Yeah.
And we were talking about how that gives a very definitive strategic advantage to one player over the other. And I was questioning whether or not I would want to play as either the offender or the defender. Of course, Tau would love to be on top of these hills. But at the same time, I would love to try tackling it from the other side of the table, because I think it would present an interesting challenge that I might not normally try and engage in. And I like doing things like that.
Now that brings up a good point, because this happened by accident, and now it's actually become a thing between Daka Joe, which you guys see in the battle report that posted before this, who always plays orcs, and Daka Joe and we meet up and we're playing, and we actually met up at his place, set up the board, and we were playing. And we played through this whole battle. We were playing Relic or something to that effect. No, we were playing the Scouring. We're playing the Scouring.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty well with that one.
And
That one's pretty good.
yeah, that one's fun. I like the Scouring a lot. I like it better than Against Never Tag. Anyway, so we're playing the Scouring, and in the end, I won. And I got home, and it was like late at night, and then the next day, I was like working on a new army list to play him again, and I realized after I put it together that the list I had the previous night was like 700 points, and we were supposed to both be running 600 points. And I messaged him, and I was like, how many points are you playing? And he was like, 600, and I was like, man, I had 700 points on the field. But you still almost had me. Like, it was still very close. It came down to, like, the final turn of the 5th round of either me barely skating by with a win or him stealing the win. It really came down to, like, me slaying his warlord in the 5th round and then the game not continuing. And he took out my Terminators and things like that. And, like, if I wouldn't have had that extra 100 points, I believe he would have slaughtered me. And so it was by accident. But at that point, he was like, well, I loved the challenge, though. I was so close to beating you, and you're up by 100 points. It made me, because like he told me straight up, he was like, I was kind of intimidated and scared looking at what you had on the field, and it did seem a little overpowering. You know, I had like a Land Raider and Terminators and 2 units of like 5 Space Marines with the HQ and everything out there, and he was like, it was a little intimidating looking at that. And he has his orcs, and he had like, you know, a truck with like 20 boys, and he had like some lavas. And he was like, I felt very underpowered, but it made me strategically place my models to where I could gain advantage other than just like, I have a lot of firepower. And so then I was like, okay, well, next time we play, you take 700 points, and I'll take 600, and you'll have the advantage. And then it's a challenge for me to try to beat you with the lower points. And I do think that's actually kind of a cool thing. We stumbled upon it by accident, but it is kind of a cool thing. Like if we play, we haven't done it yet. This is Doodle, the creature of evil. I do think it'd be cool if we played, you know, like Tau. You've already beat me every time with the Tau anyway. But no, I think that would actually be a fun thing to start doing with us, where one person gets 100 or 200 point advantage on the other person, but maybe the other person gets a strategic advantage. And one way Joe and I were talking about doing this is actually doing it on like a 4x4 or even a 4x6 board, probably a 4x4 board. And you set a relic or an objective worth the primary points, 3 or 5 points, in the middle with the 500 point army around it with like good cover of like buildings and things kind of around the outside of that. And then along the edge, you get a 2-inch from the edge all the way around the board deployment for the other armies, say Tyranids. So now you got 700 or 800 points of Tyranids in a 1 to 2 inch deployment all the way around the 4x4 board, so they're completely surrounding the board edges. And in the middle, you got 500 points of Dark Angels sitting on a relic with some like ruins or maybe a building around them or something like that. And I think fluff-wise and story-wise, it's really cool too, because we can, you know, make up the whole story and the campaign.
Well, admittedly, if you're playing 500 points and 700 points, there's a whole lot on the outside.
Well, unless somebody brings orcs, in which case you could literally line the entire you know, on either side.
Well, like I
Or
said,
Imperial Guardsmen.
Yeah.
If you only have an inch deployment, like off the 1 inch off the board edge is your deployment.
How am I supposed to deploy my Trigon?
Well, he could obviously be at the edge, but
how about this? I've got an idea.
Trigon's got a deep strike.
What we'll do is I will give you an extra 300 points. Actually, you know what? No, we'll make it 5. You get an extra 500 points on top of my army. I get to choose which edge of this board I take.
You want to set it like this?
Like this. I get an objective, and you have to cross the board, get the objective, and get it all the way back to your end.
Do I get flyers?
You can take flyers, you can take anything, but it's going to be relic movement rules.
Okay.
Let's do it 500, 750.
700. Okay.
500, 700?
Yeah, that sounds good.
500, 700.
So 500 points of Tau sitting on top of a mound with a relic. And 700 points of, like, probably Chaos is what I'll do.
If you want to bring 700 points of Chaos, has to come, get whatever the relic is, and take it back to their side of the board.
And take it back?
Take
with
it back.
The venerable...
Odds are, once you've got it, that's going to be the end of the game, because I probably won't have much left, but I'd like to see if I could stop you from getting it all the way.
Taking it back to the other side of the board is not going to be possible, especially with variable game length, like where like at the end of round 5 the roll to see if it continues. Even with a full 7 rounds, for me to get across the board, fight you off, get the relic, and start bringing it back without getting like re-engaged to like take up another turn, I don't think I'm going to get back to my side of the board with my movement, because you can only move 6 inches with the relic.
Well, keep in mind, we've got it's our scenario, so we get to determine timeline.
That's true.
We can just say that the game ends when you have no aliens left. Yeah, no aliens left. You get to the other side of the board, one or the other. You know.